What's up, guys? I'm here with Joey from the Watchmen. Thank you for coming in.
Oh, thanks for having me.
You said you were just flying in from Morden. Are you going to the Corn Apple thing?
Yeah, we are. Yeah, we're playing tomorrow night.
The classic Winnipeg band show.
I've never done it. You'd think I would have done that by now.
Really?
Yeah, never done it.
I did it once with, I think it was just with like a hardcore band I was playing. And it was just one of those things where someone knew someone and we ended up playing it and we went out and there was like, at that point, the whole Christian hardcore thing, like I'm not really as much in that scene, but that was a big thing, and there was a bunch of the kids there that were super amped, and then it was all the families that had no idea what was going on, and it was just a very contrasting environment for a hardcore show.
Yeah, for sure.
But I'm sure what you guys are doing would be a lot more fitted for that.
Looking forward to it.
But yeah, and you guys we just got introed through Dan Thomas, who's a good buddy of ours. Dan played in the Undecided, so I guess Derek knows him through like John Paul and just through playing shows. Is Dan teching for you guys?
Yeah, he's been teching for us for years now.
That's awesome, man. Dan's such a good dude, and it's nice
really
to have
is.
him like straight around the corner. Just always whenever he gets something cool, it's like, yeah, gotta come by the shop and come hang out. And we end up literally just doing this, just.
He's very passionate about gear and turned me on to you guys, so I've just been eating it up. Yeah, I love it.
And we appreciate the support, because you just told me you were using a couple D20s. Are you running a stereo rig or?
I'm running stereo. Yeah, it's perfect.
Oh man. So are you doing wet dry? Or are you doing what's the setup? Because I've been really interested. Like the D20 is still my go-to, unless it's like a big gig. But even then, it's like the direct thing. It's like it doesn't really matter. But I've been really enjoying it. And I've been considering doing the D20 stereo rig. So I'm curious how you were running it.
I run it. I run one, probably a little like chunky but clean. Right.
They're EQ'd, like dialed different.
Yes.
It's a smart way to do it.
Yeah. So and then I'll make it so it's got a nice shimmer and a lot of definition. Right. And then I'll use the other one for a bit more of the gain stage.
Cool.
And then
with like the pull.
Yeah, I'll pull it out and then I'll put the gain up. That's a nice thing about it is that depending on what room you're in, you can get that nice gain even at low volumes. But then I'll put them up together and I kind of try to make them this wide band.
Yeah.
They complement each other once they're running in stereo. And my sound tech, front of house, Neil.
You travel with your own guy?
Yeah.
We were just having a conversation with our buddy James Barker, just did one of these with us, and he was talking about how essential that is to have a guy who knows your rig and like how you're dialing your sound. Because are you running direct? No cab K. I was going to say, with the cab at least you still get that on stage and you get the beef of it, but like running direct, it's really easy to mutilate a sound if you don't have someone who knows what you're doing with it.
Yeah.
But with the cabs, no, that's great. So that's probably
I should explore the direct thing a bit more. I guess I'm still so traditional. It's tough for me to make that full commit, but I know it's come such a long way.
That was kind of the intent, though, is like it's sweet that you're using it as just like in the regular amp application, because I feel like with the D20 specifically, a lot of the people that ended up appealing to were people who wanted to run it direct. So I like hearing the people are still using them just as amps. And I always tell people that too, because like there are often people who are looking to buy our amps that are like intimidated by the 2-note stack because it's a different thing. It can be super in-depth, but I always tell them it's like if you want to just plug in and turn it up, it's like it's a single channel amp, just like it's got a second gain stage and that's pretty much it. It's pretty straightforward. So that's sweet that you're using it.
And he was very picky
as it should.
Because I went from for years I toured with a pretty cumbersome setup, but it was amazing sounding in stereo. I had a 66 AC30 running stereo with a 66 Bassman internal greenback Marshall cab.
Do you still have those?
I have them, yeah, for sure.
I was going to say, you better tell me you still got those.
But they sound amazing, and but we started to do all these fly-in shows, and we'd be getting different backlines, so I tried to find a couple of amps that I could fly and travel with, and I tried some smaller amps. I tried a lot. I have some boogies and some EVHs and stuff, and he hated it all, right? So I will tell you that when I got the Revs, we did a show at the Danforth Music Hall, Adam in stereo, and he said this is the best sounding stuff you had since your original setup.
You heard it here, folks.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that because like we are big fans of all 5150 style amps. I was just saying before, like it's a shame Derek's not here today because like he's a big boogie guy. He's
Oh, I like them. I love them.
All of it. Yeah, and we're big fans of all those amps too. I'm curious, were you running more of like an in the amp kind of sound before? Because those are both more high gain amps. Like with the D20, it's not. Like, have you switched to more of a pedal setup, or were you using pedals before?
I've always have. You know, I do rely on my pedals.
Right. Yeah, because those amps generally, like, those have great high gain channels.
Yeah.
Right? So that's
they do.
Yeah.
They do, and I still use them in my own studios in Toronto.
Right.
So I use them a lot for recording.
Nice.
But I kind of what I liked when I went back to Revv was that it brought me back to it. Even though it's such, you know, it's a new amp. They have a vintage quality to them, in my opinion.
Right.
Yeah.
That was kind of the intent, especially with the D. Like the D is the Dynamis, which is like our clean platform amp. So like if it's the D20 or the D40 or the D25, they're generally based on the same voice. Like there are some changes within the amps just based on the configuration and the tube sections and stuff. But that is definitely intended to be more of an American vintage kind of voice, but with the modern feature set. But you can ignore that if you want and just use it as as the way you're doing it. Yeah. So yeah, no, the tune-up stuff is cool, but yeah, it's great to hear that. So yeah, you were traveling, like you've always kind of gigged with the stereo rig then?
Yeah, not always. Sometimes I try to, but if we fly in the back lines,
it depends.
Sometimes I'm lucky if I get one good amp. But so that's what's another good thing about Revs is we can fly with they're small, they travel well. I just carried on, put it in the overhead.
And you could do the direct if you did choose to go that way. But it is different live. Like I understand the feeling of pushing air live. The way I've been doing it is to run direct, but then still use the cab just to be there. You know? Like you got like a little 112 or a 212, depending on what amp you're using, and you still feel it. Like I think that feeling of pushing air is what we go after, right?
Yeah.
And I think that is why we like amps. So it's nice to be able to like reproduce that, but also still have a practical direct setting where it's like if backline is not what you hope, then you're good to go.
Cool. For sure.
So yeah, tell me about your studio in Toronto. That's awesome. Like you're doing like a lot of like full mix, produce, engineer, like full everything. What kind of stuff
well, actually, it's a post audio facility. So it's called Vapor Music, and we have 5 studios. We have an Atmos studio. We do. It's all post work, so we do a ton of. Danny and I recorded our little Serlin Graves album, our side project there. But we do a ton of advertising. We do a lot of kids animated shows, film and television.
That's sick. So it's like commercial work.
Yeah, tons. And we have a studio in Vancouver as well. So 6 studios.
That's where it's at, man. That is awesome. I got my first Atmos experience at Sweetwater recently, like in like an actual proper room, and it was really cool. Like mixing in that, there's certainly an art to it that I don't quite fully understand, but it's totally different.
You mix in objects as opposed to faders, so you have to change your whole mindset.
Right. I kind of saw like the panel with all the different speaker configurations and movements and stuff like that. Yeah, it's like a different.
We do some Apple shows for Apple, and
cool.
It's mandated we have to deliver an Atmos. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Is that something that you have always done, or was it kind of initially like I know with a lot of guys that I know that got into doing that full time, it was like they were doing it while they were doing the band thing, and it kind of just led into that. Like, is that something you've always done as the commercial work, or did that
when the band went on a 7-year hiatus?
I was going to say, to give it a break there, so that's probably where it took off a bit more.
It did, yeah. So when we stopped touring, I started to write for other artists, for record companies would contact me, and I'd write, and then I scored some films, and I did some video games.
Nice. That's awesome.
Then I got into advertising, and I started a company with 2 people, and it just grew and grew. Mm-hmm. So now it's pretty full on.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's nice to have found like that stream through just playing music. Like it was funny. I used to always be dead set on like the only thing I want to do is play in a band, and then as you learn about other aspects of it, there's like just so many other ways that are fulfilling in different ways that are like, you learn so much and about what you enjoy. So that's cool to have been able to branch into that.
Yeah,
and do it full time, like in between, and then kind of still, like I find in some sense, depending on your situation, you do have the ability to kind of flip back and forth between the two. That's another nice thing if you're making your own schedule with it, right? Like,
pretty lucky that we have such an amazing fan base with the Watchmen that we can still go out and play shows on the weekends.
It's totally like a really loyal fan base.
It's crazy.
I feel like there's a lot of bands, like I know you're you're based in Toronto now, but I feel like there's a lot of prairie bands that have been able to maintain that.
Yeah.
You know, like whether it be like you guys or like totally different in the world, like bands like Harlequin or like Street Heart or those bands, like they can just come out and play shows whenever and they're still packed all the time.
Yeah.
Like the fans are so supportive out here.
So supportive.
Of Canadian music. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess like when you guys were doing things in the 90s around here, that must have been a cool time. Like there was a ton of cool music.
Yeah,
that was like
the '90s music scene in Canada was
insane.
It was incredible.
Yeah, like being able to tour with bands like the Hip and stuff at that time, like in their heyday, must have just been.
They were great. There were one band in particular that was great to us, and we had the same label and the same manager.
Right.
So we netted out doing. Somebody asked me. I think it might have been somewhere between 50 and 100 shows, if not more, because we did a few tours with them in the States.
Yeah,
so. And they were really great, really supportive of us.
Like several months worth of time together.
Yeah.
It's crazy, yeah. You spend a lot of time with the people that you're on the road with. I always say, like, I don't do it as much these days, but when I was touring with my wife, I was like, you spend more time with these people than your friends at home, right? Like when you're a full-time touring musician, so like having that relationship is essential. It's cool to hear that they were like that.
They were great.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
90s in Canada for music. I don't know.
Even tomorrow night we're playing with 5440.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So
yeah. There you go, man.
Yeah.
That's
and
so
they were
sick.
also really great to us. They gave us our first national tour when our first album came out.
That's so cool, man.
Yeah.
Everyone supports each other here. Like, and I feel like people realize that I'm not sure how it was in that time specifically, but like I know that even when I was growing up as a Canadian band, like it's a lot of work because it's more spread out. The markets are smaller. Like until you kind of really break into the States, it's a lot of work. So like the fact that Canadian bands like can all appreciate that and support each other, I think kind of gives it at least that kind of community, and that allows it to exist until it moves into something else. You know, like
it's a lot of physical work for not a lot of shows.
Yeah,
because it's so spread out.
People always ask that. It's like, what is it? They're like, you drive like 12 hours for like $100. It's like, yeah, man. Yeah, $100 and some beers.
I remember our first U.S. tours. We drive like 2 to 3 hours, and we'd be at our next show because it's all so tight. All the major centers.
This is amazing. Yeah, the first thing we do, do Europe, and it's like you drive through 3 countries in a day.
Yes,
it's
exactly.
Like the first time you do that, it's like, what's going on? And everything is so different. What do you use back to kind of gear stuff? We kind of digress there, not that we only talk about gear stuff, but I'm curious what you're using on your pedal board. Like, has that changed much from using like the 5150s or like those style amps to using something that's cleaner? Like, have you kind of reconfigured much, or has it always? Do you have mainstays on your?
No,
board?
It hasn't changed that much because some of it is kind of embedded and baked into the recordings.
Totally.
So I have to some extent replicate it.
It's like Reflex too, in a sense.
Yeah.
When you're playing, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, we talked about how I set up the width of that signal, but then beyond what the amps give me, there's 2 stages where I'll use a tube screamer,
right?
Like for a little bit chunkier rhythms.
The actual Ibanez or Maxon or
Ibanez,
the Ibanez one, the actual one. Cool.
Yeah, I think I have 4 of them. Nice. I keep getting them repaired.
Yeah. Is it the one with like the rectangle button?
I have one of those.
Yeah.
No, I don't have the little tiny button, but I have the old plastic TS9 ones.
Yeah.
Which I think Stevie Ray used, right? Stevie Ray Vaughan?
Exactly. Yeah. So those are the ones. Yeah, but they break.
Yeah, but they break, so I don't take that one anymore. But then I have 3 TS10s.
Cool.
And then I used to, when I needed that real push off the cliff, for years I used a Herzog.
Yeah, I've heard about that. I don't know if I've ever actually got to try. Oh yeah, I don't know if I've tried like any of like the legit ones, which is crazy.
Manitoba. Classics.
It's funny. I moved here from Halifax. Like this is where I'm originally from. I was 12. I was like getting more into guitar. I didn't know like a ton about gear, but I never heard of Garnet or anything, and then moved here, and it was like, oh, like these things are everywhere. What's going on?
Now, now everybody was killing for them.
Yeah, totally.
I think just before Gar Gillies passed away, he made 5 of them. Mm-hmm. I got one. I think Lenny Kravitz got one. Ian Thornley got one. Randy got another one. He probably had a couple already because that's the classic Guess Who sound.
Of course.
And I was very lucky to have one.
Awesome.
So I don't want to take that on the road anymore. So
now, that's a special one.
You know what? I went out to a guitar shop and I tried a bunch of pedals. I did a bit of a shootout, see what close, and found the Fulltone was pretty close.
OCD?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good pedal. They're built well too.
Yeah.
I feel like you don't see them as much. Like they were the thing for a minute. Like when I worked in a music store like 10 years ago, like everyone, that was the OCD. It was like a juiced up, kind of tube screamer thing. Yeah. What guitars do you take on the road then?
I have a Les Paul that B.B. King signed for me like in 1994, which was my baby. And we were talking about Air Canada earlier. Air Canada lost it for 5 days. No. And I thought it was gone forever. And
no Air Canada. It's bad.
Yeah. And one day, our singer got a knock on the door, and there's a guy with a van. Said, "Is this yours?" And I got it back. I was very fortunate.
That's
so
amazing.
I recently got a Murphy Lab 59.
Nice. Oh, okay. So you're a Les Paul guy too.
Yeah, and then I have the American-made Wolfgang.
Nice. Man, it's really a shame Derek's not here right now.
Yeah.
Dan's laughing over there because it's like we're speaking his language right now. Derek's a huge GVH guy. He's got all the Wolfgangs. And,
Yeah.
We got several Les Pauls here. That's sick. So I guess I was asking, do you bring your those guitars like on the road? Do you bring your favorite guitars on the road, or do you have like road guitars?
Yeah. So I bring those two now.
Yeah.
And I'll bring a junior with me for like open D slide stuff and.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
Nice. That's awesme.
But it depends if we're flying in and out, I'll just bring 3, maybe 4, maybe an acoustic sometimes.
Yeah.
But you know, I have like Relic Strats, I have Tellys, and yeah.
Nice.
I have a Carino Wood SG. I've got a good amount.
Not really partial to anything. Yeah. That's good. As you can tell,
But if I needed one, I'll take a Les Paul.
If you had to choose one, I was going to say weapon of choice would be a Les Paul. Cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I think I'm kind of stuck in being a Strat guy. Just
Yeah.
because I like the split sounds for so many things. Like if I could have an
so good.
HSS Strat for me would be perfect because then you can kind of get both of that. You know, like if you need the high gain stuff, you can still get it, which I do like. But yeah, the Les Pauls, they sound so good. You can't deny that for that sound, like there's nothing like it.
Yeah.
But I did say, I don't know, I got to get used to it more. Derek is a Les Paul guy. I'll show you some of the ones that we've got here. He just grabbed this R9. Yeah, this is the newest one. We were just at Sweetwater. Actually, I'll take a look at it if you want. We're looking here. Yeah, it's an R9. He got I forget what it was, but Sweetwater, we were there for Guitar Fest, and it was...
And he bought it?
It was 25% off, and then it was marked down for some other reason, and he bought it and then sold something else, and now it's even. That's how it works. But yeah, gorgeous guitar. There's that and some 91s. He's like, we've been recently talking a lot about early 90s Gibsons specifically. So we'll try some of those out too. But yeah,
nice.
This is the newest one. This was just from a few weeks ago.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah, it's really nice.
Yeah.
But cool, man. Well, yeah. Thanks a lot for stopping in. It's been great to kind of chat. I don't know if I've seen you guys before, but I've been aware of you guys for a long time. We've been friends with Dan for a long time, so it's kind of nice to chat and kind of pick your brain on gear and all that stuff. Like that's, as I was saying, that's kind of why we have this space. Really, like we use it as a studio, but more or less it's a space for us to come in and just do this, mess around. And
this is a room I could definitely spend some time in.
Well,
thanks for having me.
Let's get to it. Let's make some tones.
Okay.
And thanks, guys. Thanks for joining in.